Welcome to Learning Excel 2016. My name is Mike Henry and this is the second video from Chapter 9. In this video we're going to do the first of the financial functions we're working with in this chapter, and that's going to be finding the payment, or PMT. Now, payment can be done in two different ways. So you're going to see in this video, I'm going to do it first the way the book is asking us to do, and this is based on we're going to find the payment for a loan that we've taken out. Now I'm going to do a break and then I'm going to show you again finding the payment, but this will be for a future value. We're going to be saving money for retirement, or in our case we're going to be saving money to build a factory in the future. So I want you to be able to see payment being used both for finding a loan but also for a future amount of money. In the business world, it takes money to make money. Now there's multiple ways you can get money to finance projects. In this first video we're going to look at you're getting a loan so you can get the capital to get the equipment for this business that it needs to get started. In later video we're going to look at how we could save up money for that future thing instead of taking a loan. So in this case, being a loan, we need to plug in certain pieces of information. And this first one, we're just figuring out the payment right here, PMT. You can see the quarterly payment here is in green because this is the one key piece of information we don't know. We actually know all the other key pieces of information because that came from the loan information. So the first thing that we look at here is that this is a business loan and it asks for our present value, and right here our loan amount is $400,000. So basically the bank is handing you $400,000 and you're putting that in your back pocket and going and spending. So we put the $400,000 right here under present value. Now the next thing we're looking for is the future value. Now we know the future value of our loan is going to be 0 because we're going to pay off our loan. Now not all business loans come down to a 0. Some business loans have what we call a balloon payment, and that might be a $50,000 payment. So you would get $1 million loan and you'd pay it down until you reach $50,000, and then you just make one big payment to the bank. You don't find those in the personal world for homes or cars, things like that. But it's important to understand in the business world you can have those. The number of years, you can see that's right there on the loan. For 5 years we're going to be doing this. And that this is a quarterly loan. You can see over here we have our quarter. This is a quarterly loan, which means a business loan a lot of times are paid quarterly. So there's 4 quarters in a year. We put in the number of payments per year, which would be 4. Now here it says how many payments are you going to make. Now this is the total payments for the loan. So we can just do a quick formula that says take the number of years and multiply it times the number of payments per year, and you can see that that quickly comes out to we're going to make 20 payments over the course of this loan. Now the book asks you to do the rate, kind of interesting, so we'll do the way the book is asking us. Our interest rate is 5%, but they're asking us to put it right here. So we put the interest rate there, and then we write a formula that says look at the interest rate right here, and since we are going to be copying that formula down, I just absolute it right now and you can see the interest rate is there. The more important is not the interest rate annually, but the rate per period, or the rate per quarter in this case. So what we need to do is we need to take our annual rate, we take our annual rate right there, and we divide it by the number of payments we're going to make in 1 year. And that shows us that our rate per quarter, or rate per period, turns out to be 1.25. Now every one of those key pieces of information were on the top of our loan. The one thing that we don't know right now is what our payment's going to be. And so this is where we ask Excel to help us out and figure out our payment. Now to figure out the payment, what we're going to do is we're going to use the formula PMT. So you can see in here I start with PMT, and you see it brings that formula right up here. And I hit tab. Now I'm going to ask you to do something different with this one. I'm going to ask you to use the argumenter to help us here. So right here with this insert function, if I click on that, you can see it brings up all the function arguments. And you'll notice that every time I do this, I'm going to set this up So the line of information that's important to me is going to be right here. So in this case, it says rate. Now if I'm confused whether it's annual or rate per period, I look down here at the definition. It tells me this is the interest rate per period for the loan. So I click on this one right here. And you can see it drops it in place, and then over here it actually puts in the interest rate, which is 1.25%. Now here, the number of payments, this is the total number of payments on the loan. You can see I put these in here for you. It makes it nice. Probably won't do that for you on the test, by the way. I can click right there and you see it drops in the 20. Now it's asking me for the present value, the PV. We know that that loan is $400,000, so I put in that. Now I wanted to show you something. Each of these were bolded. That means they're required. You cannot do this formula unless those three are filled in. Now this one here, future value, is dimmed a little bit, and that means it's not required. Now if you leave it as empty and you just hit go ahead and do the formula, it will assume future value is 0. Okay, and in this case we do have a future value of 0, and let me go back and hit that right. The future value I can put in there, and that would put in my 0. And you can see that right there. If I didn't do that, it would have automatically made my future value 0. Now type, we're not going to be using the type for what we do in this class, but the type means when is the payment coming. If it's a period equals 1, the payment is at the end of the period, or 0, 1 is the payment is at the beginning of the period, 0 is the payment is at the end of the period. We're going to assume all payments are at the end of the month or end of the quarter. It just means are you saving interest or not saving interest. So we hit 0 here because we're going to make the payment on the last day of the quarter. And you can see that it says we're going to pay $22,728 for the right to borrow that money. And we're going to do this 20 times. So you look at that and you go, does that make sense? And if you were to say, well, 22,000, we'll just make it 20,000. And if you did it for half the payments, or 10, that'd be 200,000. So if you did it for 20, that'd be 400,000. And then you've got all this extra, which is the interest. So that makes sense. You're going to pay the loan off plus have that extra interest. If this number was 40,000, I would begin to say that doesn't make sense. I'm paying back way too much money. I also want you to notice that this is in red because that's an outflow. That's a negative number. The money is coming out of our account and going into the bank's account. This over here was a positive number because the money came into our account. Here's the money going out of our account. Instead of using a loan for our business here, in this case we're going to save up money for a future investment. Our kayaking company here has designed a new boat, and we need a new factory to build this boat in. It's a very special boat, and we need to have this up and running within the next 18 months. We need to be starting our factory, or else we're going to be behind the competition. So in this case, we're going to save for the next 18 months, and you can see we need $1.8 million. Today we have in our pocket $400,000, and after talking to the accountant, they said that we'll be guaranteed to be able to put away $55,000 every month. We can do that. And the marketing department is saying we got to get it done in 18 months or in a year and a half. We have no choice. And then there's our interest rate. You can see I've already filled in these pieces for you just to save some time on this video. So the initial investment, we go right here for our initial investment to figure out what our payment's going to be, and you can see that we have $400,000, so we put our $400,000 in there, and that's our initial investment. Now our investment goal here is $1.8 million. It's not 0 like we were looking at the loan, so I put in my $1.8 million right there. And now I got to figure out what would my payment be. Is it going to be truly the $55,000, or will it be more or less? I don't know. So in this case, I'm figuring out my payment, and I do it the same way we did before with a PMT formula. And I put my piece in here. Now, I do the same thing I was doing before. My rate is the rate per period. In this case, it's not quarterly, it's monthly. So I put my rate in. The number of periods in this case will be 18 because this is a really quick thing we're saving for. Now the present value, that was the $400,000 I have today. Most importantly, under future value, I know it's not zero. This isn't a loan. I need to get to this number right here, 1.8 million. And I leave that in place, and I have my type here. We're going to leave the type as a default 0 because we're going to make our payments at the end of the month. All right. And you look at this and you go, whoa, I have to put $118,000 every month away to get to $1.8 million. And ask yourself, does that make sense? Because if you just took $100,000 every month and put it away, you're doing it 18 times, that would get you to 1.8 million. So the bank is charging you interest of $18,000 a month, really, so they can give you back 1.8 million? That doesn't make sense at all. And this is what happens a lot when people start not understanding cash inflows and outflows. This over here should be a negative number. The reason is the money is coming out of your back pocket and going into this investment. And watch what happens when I change this from a positive to a negative 400,000. Okay. So, whoops, let me try that again. I didn't get my negative in there. Now you can see that that's a negative 400,000. I had 400,000 in my back pocket. I took it out and gave it to this investment. And then every month I invest another 70,000 on top of that, and by the end of it I get 1.8. And real quickly, 70,000, if you take the first 10 months, that'd be 700,000, and then you get almost another 10 months, which would be another 700,000. That would give you 1.4, plus this 400,000 there would get you the 1.8. And remember, we're just a short 2 payments because that's the interest we're earning. That makes sense. Okay? So always go back and look at your numbers and go, does it make sense? Or else you could find yourself off a little bit just because you have an inflow versus an outflow. In this video, we looked at finding the payment. We found the payment for a loan, where we're borrowing the money and what we would have to pay back to get there. And we figured out the payment on a future value. We were saving money for a factory in this case, but this could be your retirement plan. So we need to look at the payment can be done in both ways. We learned that all the key pieces have to be put in place before you can move on to doing the payment.